All right, Tom Bowlus with Bass Gear Magazine coming at you from the Winter NAMM in Anaheim. Here with Jimmy Coppolo and looking at all the cool new basses in the Alleva Coppolo booth. Jimmy, can you give us a little bit of update about what's new and what you're doing with your basses?
Yeah, sure. We'll start with the short scale. Something new that I've been working on for a little while, and came up with a different pickup design and 30-inch scale. It's just something I always wanted to do, and just for giggles I did it, and people are kind of digging it. So I know we're on a time limit, so jump over to I made some changes. I made some changes with the 5 strings. The most obvious is the body. It's a little bit wider, so it's more proportion, at least to my eyes, with how it should be with the 5 string. I did change the headstock shape a little bit. It flows a little bit more. I also changed the headstock and how it angles a bit this way. So my tuner location is more straight with the string direction. I've reintroduced some stuff that was done back in the 50s and 60s on instruments like this. I'll show you. I don't know if he's going to be able to see it. On those older instruments, there's this little bump on the treble cutaway, and a lot of vintage dealers back in the day would consider it as a router's hump, but it's actually there for a reason. It's there for, at least with my experience, for support, so that this piece doesn't crack off. Whether you're manufacturing, or at least manufacturing the way I do with a pin router. On a CNC, you might not need it, as those parts are perfectly fit, perfect pieces that fit together. But on this, you know, the way I do it, with the pin router, things get a little crazy and pieces go flying, and you know, so you least expect it, and you don't want to, you know, waste bodies like I've been doing in the past. The other thing too is if, you know, you're one of those musicians who just leaves it leaning up against the amp and it drops and you get that crack in the body, with this little bump, it looks a little funny, but I think it's going to add a lot more support, and I think that's why it was there back in the 50s and 60s. So it's something that I've reintroduced. Another thing that I've done with the bodies on the basses for a while, because I did start building guitars first, and what I didn't realize, that actually bass bodies built back in the day were a little bit thinner than the guitars, and I had been following the old guitar way of doing it, so I actually came thinner with the body to old school spec. So it's maybe like 80 thousandths or 100 thousandths. It's not going to really notice it. I like though that since I did on the 5 strings, getting back to the 5 strings, that I did widen them a bit, that I was able to compensate and come skinnier with the body. So I'm glad that I made that, I guess we'll say, mistake, for lack of a better term, on the other ones. So that's just some of the things that I've done. Also, this is the first run of one-piece necks. So like, you know, on these walnut ones, you know, with the plug and the skunk stripe. We're doing some signature models as well. Let's see, I don't know where to start. This Ruben Rodriguez one. It's basically our RA5, but with a bit of an extended cutaway. So he plays that note. It's been the biggest rib or biggest joke that I've been doing on everybody, because, you know, on the G string past the 12th fret, there's no money up there, at least in my world, as small as it may be. But he says, you know, and a lot of players agree with him, they use that note. So for his specific model, I went ahead and I cut it a little bit more so you could play up there. The next signature model that I did was the Bobby Vega, which is based on his 61 stack knob. So I try to get it as close to his bass. I did fiber inlays, Brazilian board, stack knob. I did the mutes, actually put the mutes on the other day, and it just pulled the intonation and got wacky. And he mutes with his hand anyway, so we took them off. But we left the screws. It looks kind of cool and funky. Same thing with the ground going to the bridge. I just wanted to try to get as period correct as possible. Another one that I'm doing is something that Willie Weeks and I have been talking about back and forth for a long time. He's more of a P-style guy, but I made him a few basses, and they've sort of all come back because the nut width wasn't wide enough. So he had an idea. Why don't you use your 5-string nut width but on a 4-string? So this is it. So I haven't actually spoken to him yet about it. I called him a few times. He must be on tour or something. But as soon as the show's over, I'm going to send it to him and see what he thinks. People are playing it. They're not really. I figured it would be an issue. I thought people would notice it, but no one seems to be noticing or caring, and they're digging it. So I don't know. Maybe it's the way it's supposed to be. I don't know. It sounds good. And I, off the top of my head, that's all I can think of right now. That's kind of new. We're getting the site up finally. I mean, I've always had the site, but it's been my weakest point.
Right.
I've got some other people helping me, and we finally got the factory tour up, so you see how we do things, get a better idea. By March, my CNC should be actually up and running, and I'm planning on doing a run of CNC-made basses, which will be something different than this. The other thing we're doing too with our higher end guitar basses, we're including the iGig bag, which is a bag that I really love. I wish back when I was gigging in New York, back in those days, that was around, because the bag has a lot to offer. Gee, I'm trying to think what else. There are a few other little things that I've changed, but I know we're on a time thing, and we're, you know, I don't want to take up your time. But for those details, you got to email me or call me. So
Will do.
Right.
Thanks a lot, Jimmy. Appreciate it, and always a blast to come to the Alleva Coppolo booth. There's lots of toys. I'm trying to figure out how many of these I can take home with me, but